Carlin Poe. Oh, thank you, Jan. So everybody say got it. Um, you've been published all over your pieces. Starlight Starbright appears in the Lark Publications Showcase 500 Necklace, and you're now in Virginia. And we are just so darn excited. So you are going to be talking about your bead journey tonight.
Yes.
And so please, we will just all mute. And if you want us to unmute to ask questions, or you can put questions in the chat and we'll gladly help filter them for you.
Yeah, why don't you put them in the chat? Might be easier.
Sounds
Because
good.
it's already like a control panel when you do this.
Absolutely. So then you can screen share, do anything you want.
Okay, so you're
The floor is yours.
okay, thank you. Let's see. And we're out. Okay. My bead journey, like Rochelle said, I'm self-taught. And right, but I've always done needlework of some kind, anything with a needle and thread. And I've done that since I was very, very little. And I had very gifted grandmothers who taught me a lot. My mother taught me a lot. So I just felt beadwork is kind of an, evolution of hand sewing. So it's kind of like I'll give about, gosh, I'm trying to think, like my husband and I were trying to think the roots of some of this goes back about 26 years. So I shall go to the next piece. This is where I started beading. I was making little pieces of jewelry that I was selling at craft shows when my youngest son was a little guy. So I learned from books from a lovely bead embroiderer and silk embroiderer, Judith Baker Montano, and I greatly admired her work. And then this piece was before I saved this piece because it was probably one of my beginning pieces. And I didn't know what to sew the beads on with. I sewed them on with quilting thread because I didn't know what else to use at the time. And then I evolved into some little purses, and all these things were digital so long ago that when I tried to do a slideshow with them, they were all pixelated. So I reshot them all. So I still love embroidery. In another piece. So all my girl nieces, all my little favorite nieces, I have given them a silk ribbon embroidered purse for their high school graduation. And of course, with money in it. And then this was a box I did. I still have this. I don't think I'll ever get rid of it. I love it. And it was one of the most fun pieces I made and time consuming. And then I evolved into some brooches. I was, I did teach myself how to do actual seed bead work from, I cannot remember if it was the back of beadwork or bead and button. And I did it with number 15 beads. And as we all know, that's kind of crazy. And some more pieces. These are very early pieces. And I look back at them and I still have a couple of these. I cannot figure out, because my work is improved and evolved, I can't figure out why people bought them. And then I love Diane Relib pieces. This is the only one I have left. And I'm keeping her. And she was done with, they were a galvanized seed bead. So, as well as they're not going to wear really well with a lot of handling, and turquoise. And I will keep her. And I haven't worn her in a while. I'll have to pull her back out. This was another piece. You remember a number of years ago when turquoise was really big and coral? I made this piece and I couldn't believe I sold it for like $125. And I look back and I'm going, why did anybody buy that? And then this was my first collar. And I did it with ocean jasper. I got some of the pieces at a gem and mineral show. I bought some of the larger beads on eBay, and a friend of mine gave me the smaller beads, and then I didn't have enough, so I had to again go on an eBay hunt. I absolutely love this piece. that was my showstopper when I was selling seed bead work. I'd always have it up on my countertop, and people really, that was a good conversation starter. And I love this piece, and it won a couple of awards. And I didn't have it named, and it was in judge at a fine art show. He's good. This looks like Cleopatra should be wearing it, so why don't we call it that? And I've worn this one a lot, so much to where if anybody ever wanted to buy it on the inside of the collar, I would have to, redo the beads. And these are two pieces. I evolved into, I did a lot of smaller and bead embroidery pieces and shows. So the one on the left, I'm trying to think if my mouse will go over and highlight, but it's iolite for the chain. In the pot I'm in right now, the stone absolutely eludes me. And then the one on the right side was done with dinosaur bone, sunstone, and smoky quartz for the necklace strap. And I have earrings that go with this one, and I'm not selling this one. I love this one. And then this was my piece. I cannot believe this has been 20 years ago. And I did not realize that until I put the slideshow together. And this was a piece. I met a lady at a show, and her jewelry, she did little brooches, and she told me, I recognize some of the components and things that you're doing. Why don't you, on this break, pull everything, stones and beads, and just put them on your table? And I challenge you to come up with a piece that's very creative. So this was a piece I did. I'm going to say it was kind of in maybe second or third in the line, but I actually took this picture all by myself, and I submitted it to Fire Mountain. And we're talking 6 months later, and my son got himself on a 2-week suspension from school, so he became my little unpaid helper. And I made him schlep my stuff, help me clean stuff. And he went out to the mailbox, and he brings back this great big envelope. And he said, Mom, Fire Mountain on it. I bet you won something. I kind of go, okay. I opened it up, and I couldn't believe I won $1,100 in merchandise. And then I was the first grand prize winner. I was absolutely blown away. But what I didn't realize at that point, because I was not teaching yet, that people actually wanted the instructions. So I had to make a whole nother piece to, get my bead counts and all, because I didn't do any of that. And so now, of course, anytime I do anything, I take copious notes, so I know my counts. I don't have to redo and put in as much time as I did for this piece. But I only made it in this colorway. I never had time to make another piece, because once I started teaching, I didn't have time to, it became a hard balance between a fine art show and teaching. And then this was a piece, I think it got an honorable mention, but it was used in their advertising. And again, this is a piece I designed from the prize money materials. They were the most beautiful coin pearls. Oh my gosh. And then this one was a blister pearl that I think I picked up at a gem show. And I just made it a bracelet. Now, later on, I'm going to show you how it evolved into this piece. And I did get so busy that I stopped entering any contest. I just really did not have the time anymore, because I still had a child at home. And this is a piece. It's in the same line frame as the Fire Mountain piece. And this was with lovely saltwater mobbies, and they were from the South China Sea. And I, made them with the love, just some lovely plated beads and freshwater pearls. I was a real pearl girl for, I'm going to say 10 years. And then this was a piece this was bead and button. And I was, how when you're working with an editor and the editor does not bead. And I found out when I'm proofing it, there's only 4 rows of beadwork plus the edging on this piece. They made it into 8 rows with 2 sets of decreases. I had some very, very tremendously upset people getting in contact with me. So I always sent them my teaching notes. And, I can only apologize so much for, their mess up, but they did correct it finally. So this was a simple piece that I did with a beautiful freshwater pearl for the magazine. And then it evolved into, how you can take something and you teach it for a certain amount of time. And I did sell this one at fine art shows. And then it kind of stopped. And then I discovered these saltwater mobbies and started making some pieces out of that. And it gave the piece a new lifespan to enough to where I did teach this one at a new Bead Fest, Bead and Button. And I have 4 necklaces. That's how much I taught it. It was out all over the country. And then a close-up of it that I did in a kind of a green topaz-y iridescent.
Very cool.
And then this one was, again, going to gym shows. I had probably a mother of pearl cabochon and sliced agates. And these were both pieces that I sent them. I have one of the pieces left. The other one I sold. But I loved, like, the piece in the magazine that's laid out in the browns. I used an antique button on it. I loved using, I was taking shoe clips and adapting them for closures and antique buttons. And I really liked that one. And it taught well. And the interesting part in those days, even though it had been published, I was still teaching it. And this piece was my eBay months and months and months of collecting sunstone. I bought the center really large one. I bought that at a gem show. And when you get things off of eBay, they're kind of not exactly little 8x10s, and the thicknesses vary. So I had to take some beading foundation and glue them down to where I got them all relatively in the same depth, so I could get the same bead counts to capture them. I used little rondels, and they were sunstone rondels, and they were so tiny I had to use a number 15 needle to go through them. And so, we love those number 15 needles. And I even had to back down to 4-pound fire line to stitch them on. And I lost count of how many needles I broke on this. And it weighs a lot. I'm going to say, I feel like it weighs 10 pounds, but it probably weighs 5, or less. I love this one. And then again, this is what I took to shows. I always needed something a little over the top when I was, doing those shows. And then this one was, I'm trying to think, a spiral rope that I went back in and I put pearls. And these were part of the pearls I got from Fire Mountain at the time. And it evolved into, I had more fun shopping at the gym shows and buying all sorts of different pearls and making pearl soup. And this was a lovely piece. And I've sold quite a number of them. This piece is probably gone, but I have one that's, similar enough. And then this again was spiral rope that I went back in and put a fringe. And then you can see the clasp. I copied an eBay shoe clip that I got, and I wasn't very adept at wire work, but I did become so. And it just made a beautiful clasp. And I always like to have a counterbalance in the back because you need it to look as good, entering a room and exiting a room. And then I did these in several different colors and different types of pearls. And, I was proud to sell this work. And I remember one show, and as those of you do craft shows, fine art shows, Sundays are not usually your best day. I sold 3 of them on a Sunday. I was shocked. It was the one and only time that ever happened. And they were all like 15 minutes apart. There were people that it was the 4th day of the show, and they kept coming back and looking at it. And everybody got their choice. And then this piece was for beadwork. And I cannot remember the editor at the time, but she saw my work and she picked up that bracelet and she says, "Would you please let us have this and publish it?" So this is the piece in the magazine. This is the piece close up. And again, this was something that even though it was in the magazine, it's still, I taught it. I adapted into different sizes for, you know, everybody's wrists are a little different and we're all little different sizes. And I remember, excuse me, my husband was manning my booth, which is something he does not like to do. And a woman was arguing with him. She kept saying the piece that was on display, which is the piece in the square you see, was not the piece from the magazine. And he goes, lady, I don't know what to tell you. You know, this is it. And this piece was the first piece I ever taught. And it was also a piece that Beadwork wanted, but they wanted it as a choker. And I remember it was really funny. They're proofing it. And I go, would you like the bead counts for the choker? Because I just gave them the, you know, bracelet. So this piece, again, was part of my purchases from my Fire Mountain money. And this piece, I made it in so many gemstone colors. It blended well in a whole lot of things. It was relatively quick to make. I taught this. It would have been better taught as a 6-hour class, but the bead shop did do, you know, in the beginning, they wanted it as a 3. But over the years, I did, you know, was able to teach it as a 6 hours. So people walked out with at least half of it finished. And I love this piece. And then this is part of an evolution process. It was 18 millimeter Rivoli. I named it Sky's Jewel for my granddaughter, Sky, who is now 25 years old. And it was a really nice piece to teach. And this was when I was beginning to move more into just teaching all the time. And then it evolved into this piece, which made it, the necklace, really pop. It was much more spectacular. And again, you know, and my granddaughter was blown away. Grandma, why would you name something after me? And I go, well, you're my, you know, at the time she was my one and only granddaughter. And then that evolved into this piece, which I called Sky's Corsage. And it was really nice because you could really get it to fit, you know, all sorts of wrist. And I liked it best in an 18 millimeter, but you could use a 16 or 14 in it, and it worked very well. And again, it gave you flexibility if you had someone with a tiny wrist or a larger one. But the Rivoli in this were antique Rivolis I picked off of eBay. And you know, when you get something really old and you open up and you just smell the old mustiness. And I sold every single crystal I had of this. So now I call this the love knot because you remember, I don't know, one of the jewelry stores around Valentine's, they always do what my, you know, the little necklaces and things. The shape of the bail was from one of their advertising, and I really had to work at it getting it. And so I did it on a, it is herringbone with a twist. It probably has 8 beads around, so it's pretty big and it's pretty, you know, substantial. And then I put it on pretty much the same cabochon or the Rivoli. This isn't a Rivoli. This was the stones, the 27 millimeter stone. So it kind of evolved along the way. And this was a piece I started with antique Swarovski crystals. And I've recently just re-released it. I had a lot of people asking me for it and they wanted it in a kit. So I re-kitted out. And I also took at this point, I was doing photography, you know, step-by-step pictures. And this past winter, I rewrote all the instructions and fully illustrated them. And I have to say, they're a lot better illustrated. I think it turned out this piece is from like 2011. And it had a snap closure because I wanted the piece to go all the way around. And this is a piece I called Bejeweled. And even though this picture shows, I think at the bottom dangle, it had a 16 millimeter Rivoli. It did look better with an 18. I just couldn't find it in the volcano color. So I varied the sizes a little bit in each of the kits I've made. This was sad to say, I taught this for the very first time. It was the last time I taught at a lovely bead shop down in Old Town Alexandria, Virginia. So it was kind of I was very bittersweet about teaching it, but I taught it a lot. I taught it Bead and Button and Bead Fest and whoever asked me to come teach. And then this piece, I taught at Accent Beads in Rockville, Maryland. And she showed me a bag of the tiniest little rivolis. And she goes, bead challenge, can you figure out something we could do with these beads? And then this is what I came up with. And it is a labor-intensive piece, but it is tremendously beautiful. And you can make it into a necklace also if you want. I no longer have kits for it, but digital instructions are available. And it is so feminine and it's delicate. And then this is, I call this suited, a Tudor Queen's jewel, and I'm wearing it. I'm actually, when I retire my pieces, I start wearing them. I'm almost too afraid to wear my newer pieces because I can be a klutz when I wear jewelry. And so I save them. But a couple of these pieces in the picture, I donate a lot of my samples to like St. Jude's. I've donated to a piece to the Angel Man Foundation, and I will do that with my retired pieces. I think I want to have it help charities to raise some money, and if they would like a piece of my jewelry, and if I have something available, I'm more than willing to do that. So the centerpiece was I don't know, had a point. It was kind of reminding me of a teardrop. And people drove me crazy for it, and I couldn't get the crystals at the time. So that was the very first piece I donated. And then the rest, I loved this because it was such a versatile piece. You could make it all with rivolis or stones. I probably had bead counts for every kind of stone at one time. It was something that my bead shop owner in Alexandria and I did. We just kind of took half and half and, redid them. And this is a piece from Lark Books. I taught every year for the Bead Society of Greater New York, and their program director was Carol Tripp, and she really encouraged me to enter into this Lark publication. She said, you've never done anything like this before. I want you to do that. And I was so thrilled that they actually used my photograph in it. I'm sure their art director redid it, but it was very, very exciting to me to be in this magazine. And the piece I called Starlight Starbright. It is it's kind of reversible, although I have the embellishments on what I call the right side. So it's hollow in the middle. And some of my students like to puff them up and stick like saran wrap and make them more dimensional. I liked it flat, but the idea came from a movie with Kevin Kline and Ashley Judd called The Lovely. And it was a piece that she wore into a room and came down a staircase. And I just kept rewinding, going back until I got a nice sketch. And you can wear it centered, you can wear it off to the side. It was very versatile. And I did a closure around a magnet. And it was I taught this piece for a very, very long time. And I think I might have a few kits left, but for the most part, it's digital. And then from the Starlight Starbright, it evolved into the Starfish pendant because my bead shop owner, once again, Stars Beads in Vienna, Kay wanted a 3-hour class. I got it to a 4-hour class that most everybody would walk out with a finished piece. And it was fun. But the very first piece I made was with number 15s and 11s. It works better with 8-0s and 11-0s. You will keep your sanity that way. But I will say the little tiny ones do scale down nice for earrings, and it has a loop in the back. And this piece is a piece that keeps selling. It comes back every couple of years. Somebody will post a piece on Facebook or in a beading group, and then I get a whole lot more sales all of a sudden. And I'm always very, very thankful. And this piece was in Pearl and Posen, and they went with the blue version, although the gray version I liked because the materials were less expensive. The brass components in the blue piece really made it a very pricey piece. I had intended to kit it out, but it was a time-consuming piece. I do need to say rewrite the instructions, and I can probably do it that way. But it fits, it's shaped, it's herringbone, and it really feels nice when you wear it. And then this piece was for me, it's the upper piece in the upper corner was I bought it from the gal who had the bead hoard in the trailers. She showed me some things, and we believe these were meant to be buttons, but they worked perfectly as a cabochon, and she had like 54 of them. So one was defective, and I made 2 samples. So I sold all the rest of them. I think I taught it maybe twice, and then sold the rest of them. So the piece in the lower corner is how I reworked it about a year ago, because I needed to be able to, even to sell it digitally, I had to have a component that people could get and use. So I found these lovely, they're glass cabochons from an artist on Etsy. So one's the tree of life and one is the bee. And then I made, just 2 colorways. Pretty much everything's the same, although I flipped around a few colors in the instructions, but it gave a piece new life. And it was, I wanted to do that because I thought the original piece was so lovely, and I just didn't want to just let it go. And I had this piece rumbling around in my head for a couple of years. I had more pearls, just pearls, and different ways of capturing them in a little box. And I came home in 2015 from Beading Button, and I pulled them out, and I said, I'm doing something with them now. And really quick, I came up with this. And this one, I believe, is probably one of my first. I think this one's I did drawings for it, not pictures. I'm finding anymore that pictures and a drawing probably go hand in hand. But I like this piece because I used quite a few 2mm crystals for the first time. And I just love how they sparkle. Well, my grandmother told me when I was a teenager, I would love pearls one day, and she was right. And then this piece is my faux marcasite bracelet. It's tremendously light in weight. It's herringbone and peyote. It's very adaptable to different size wrists. And when I make my samples, I try and make them if I know I'm going to make, at least 4 samples, I try and vary the sizes a little bit. And I varied it by the loops going around the wrist. And this is a very beautiful piece. And then a fun piece, I found these discs from a Western supply store, and they were actually meant to embellish Western wear. And I remember when I finished the piece, I emailed them a picture of it, and they were so excited. They go, this is the first time somebody's ever done anything this different with our components. And they I think, used it in a little bit of their advertising. So I made a bracelet to go along with it, and some earrings that you can wear with it, but I can't get the discs anymore. I think I might have 1 or 2 kits left, and I'm looking for the perfect thing to remake it again, because I think it's beautiful. And I will say it is so nice to wear. And this one is cubic right angle weave that I put on the inside of the curves, smaller beads and larger ones on the outside that forced the shape. And I really enjoyed this one. And this was where I was really beginning to get a little bit away from exclusively using Fireline. I believe at Beading Button, they gave us samples of some different types of beading thread. And I found anymore I tend to use what I can get the color to match the bead. And I do use Fireline some, because I know some people do still really, really like it. So I want to know when I make a piece, okay, you can make it with Fireline, you can make it with, this thread, KO or 1G. And I do like to play around with that. And then this is a piece, Play with Fire. Does anybody know where I might have gotten that title from? It's from the Rolling Stones song. I was getting a little desperate for names of pieces. So this is a large stone at the bottom again, cubic right angle weave with a 12 millimeter Rivoli at the top. And I like it because it's very flexible. You can make it really long or very short, depending on how you want to personalize it. And the chain is cubic right angle weave also, that's been embellished as you go. And then this was a piece I found. My inspiration for this one came from an antique picture that was kind of fuzzy. And I said, okay, I had to look for a long time. These are paper mache drops, are pretty big. I went with them because they were so lightweight. Anything else I tried to use was too expensive, too heavy. When I tried to connect it, it cut the thread. So this was my piece, and it feels good. And again, some people like to wear it as very long or short. It's your call, it's your piece. And then this one, my inspiration was a lady who had a crown key fob. And I kept watching her, and I was doing little drawings. So this one was a fun one. And again, in my cubic right angle weave phase, so I used, I think 3 millimeter pearls and 2 millimeters and some demi beads. I mean, I use lots of different things in this, and because I wanted to see, okay, what can I use on this one? Because I used check pearls on it. I found they worked very, very well. And this can be worn. It seems split. I sold about half kits with the chain and half just wanted as a object de art. And again, I just had this idea, more the name. I call it the peekaboo pendant. And I found the cotton pearls, and they're so lightweight. And I just had myself a fun little time making it. And then the matte iris and pink one was the last one. I was working on it when I was teaching it, and I didn't finish it up until during COVID, actually. It was when I really finished it. So I like, I don't know, I just have fun. Everybody likes gold. And then, okay, silver, but I love bronze, and I love matte iris and pink. And this one's, again, you can wear it short or long, depending on how you want to make the chain. And the chain itself is herringbone. The piece that goes around the pearl, the large cotton pearl, is peyote with different sized beads that are used as markers for you to go back on top of and embellish. This piece, the inspiration came from the Vikings. And there was a character named Queen Judith. She wasn't a very nice queen, but she wore this necklace all the time. And I changed the shape a little bit because I just couldn't get the counts around the SS39 chaton. But I love that it's not a true triangle. It's a little elongated triangle that I went back up on top and did a netting on. And I think it's very feminine. And as you can see, you can make 5 components, you can make 3, you can make 1. I think most people look best with the 3 components because depending on your size and what you're wearing, the 5 component works very well. I have a couple of, like a dress that I wear the 5 component with. So I think it turned out, I was very pleased with this one. And then this was another song title. I think it was One Republic, Just What You Wanted. And I came up with this one. And they were a lovely Swarovski 10 millimeter dome bead. And I used check pearls on it because I'm really trying to be mindful of what a kit cost. And I don't want to create something that's, very, very expensive. I think this is kind of probably for me one of my more expensive kits. And it works well because it's components, and it's fun because you can either do all the components and then the fill-in pieces, or if you want to start at the back and work around, it doesn't matter. And you can create additional length by the back of the necklace where the toggles go through the two rings. I have somewhere in my house a longer strap. So, it depends on what you're wearing with how you want a necklace to sit. So this one was a good way to vary your length. And that is the end. And I told Rochelle that I'm stopped teaching. I've had some vision problems in my past, and I'm too afraid of making a commitment to teach and all the work that's involved and not being able to honor a commitment. So I'm really, the last couple of months, working on, say, rewriting and illustrating some of those old pieces that I did, step-by-step pictures, because it's helped me to retrain my vision a little bit. I've got one new piece on my Etsy store, and I call it the disco ball earrings. It was a vintage triangle I found, and with other check components. And it's really fun because it's, spins and sparkles. Anyone have, it's question time?
Your work is so beautiful. I mean, do you have a favorite?
Currently it's Queen Judith, and I think mainly because the 3-component one really sits well. It's not heavy, and I really do like that one. But for a lot of I don't always wear my more current work because I'm afraid I'm going to damage it, because I'm a klutz. I will hang it up on something. I have broken pieces. I'm bad. So this one, this is what I wore to the family wedding. We're in Flagstaff. So we had the wedding Saturday night, and it was a lot of fun because it was all my girl cousins and my mom and all the men, the husbands and all. We just had a lovely time. And I'm digging through all my stuff, and I go, I have to wear a piece of my jewelry. And so this one was like luminous green, and it went with this like cedar green linen we had. So and then when Rochelle said, didn't you bring work in progress? And I go, I brought my crocheted pumpkin I'm working on for, the fall. And so I thought, well, I better at least put on my necklace. And then I do have
pumpkin to show
matching
us?
earrings. Say again?
Do you have the pumpkin to show us?
It's downstairs. I didn't grab it. And it's only about that long. It's really neat because you slip stitch and then you do single crochet and then half double crochet. So it gets very funky, and then you gather, you sew it up and gather it. I made one for my grandson last year, and he really liked it. He loves pumpkins. And then I made the baby a pumpkin hat. So part of my deciding not to teach also had to do with my 2 younger grandchildren. They live close by, and I absolutely have too much fun with them. It's really hard. Okay, this has to be beading time. This has to be, business stuff, and then Sander and Oswin time. Mm-hmm. And I'm so blessed to be able to see them frequently. In fact, I go back and I'll see Xander on Friday.
That's so cool. And so have you taught any of your grandchildren beading, or do anybody else in the family, they like to bead, or they just like to wear your stuff?
Mostly wear my stuff. My granddaughter, when my grandchildren lived in Ohio, they used to come for about 2 weeks, and then they go to another grandmother, and then they would come back to us. And I've taught Sky how to do I taught her a couple things. I get this, that girl could picked up cubic right angle weave like that. She cannot follow a set of instructions for nothing, but I can walk her through it. So we did Marcia DaCosta's peace sign, and she had a lot of fun with that one. And we did one together. I always had to, we had to do it together, literally pick up the beads and do it together. And then I did lots of crafts with the older two grandchildren, and Xander's 6, so we're just starting crafts. So I did believe it, I did torch enameling with my older two grandchildren. I taught them how to etch, and their mother told me I wasn't allowed to do anything with a flame around them. And I was a bad grandma. I just told them, don't tell your mother.
Yeah. Those are the best grandparents, I think, honestly.
Yeah. We I remember my grandmothers taught me so much about sewing. I want to, and I have good memories of that. So I want my grandchildren to have good memories of things that we've done together. So, but believe this, my little grandson, sewing on patches. Like he had to put one on one his school pack, and we put one on a hat. He does understand how to push the needle through and how to catch on the side. So, I want him to learn how to sew a button on, how to sew a seam. I think it's really important. They don't teach that in school currently. But my Xander was I really cared for him a lot as an infant, and then during COVID a lot because his parents were working from home then. So he was like 3 then. He was a little guy. So we cook. His favorite thing to make is chocolate chip cookies or snickerdoodles.
I love it. It's a little departure from beading, but it's still once you learn one thing and learn to create, and then you get to eat it or wear it. I think that's the addictive part of the process of the creative, that, one step at a time. Do you have any advice for us on how I could see how your beadwork evolved over years? Do you have any advice for us if we're trying to adapt an old pattern of ours or something to get it out there? How to change it up a little bit, or where do you go? Where do you start?
We have a lady in our bead society that she's an amazing beader. She has done some of my testing, and she wants to design, and she made a little object for a bead challenge, but it was a little bit of this from one artist and a little bit from another. And I said, keep that up. You will begin to design your own from that. But I have a lot of people that will send me pictures, customers will send me pictures of how they made some little changes, and some of the things they did, I go, geez, I should have thought of that. Or I wish I had time to do that too. There isn't enough time ever for beading and for everything you want to do, And then my husband is kind of semi-retired, and his main thing, he didn't want me to teach anymore. He goes, I'm tired of you being gone. And then with my vision, he kind of goes, well, I think it's time now to step back. So we've been in Arizona. We've hiked 3 mornings up in a Coconino National Park. It's beautiful. And we did in Sedona a archaeological hike, which was very, very interesting. And the guide had to have been all of 20 and treated us like we were 100. And, oh, do you need to rest? And I'm like, no. So it was funny. I love creating. And one thing I do find that sometimes with beading, I needed to do another medium to get me jump started back into a new phase of beading. So that's why I did I did some torch enameling. I wasn't very good at it. I had fun with it. And then the etching, the same thing. I wasn't great, but I had fun. And it was something to do with my grandkids. But then when I was done with that, man, I just dove into the beading again. And then right now I'm switching between sewing. I was bored during the pandemic, like the rest of us. I started sewing again, and I really like it. And then I'm going, oh, I have to make a dress to, match this necklace. Those, what, we all do that. We had to go out and buy something to wear with our creation. So the goal is, I think, is to be good to yourself when you bead. Make sure you get up and move around. Beading especially does closing your vision. So make sure you get up, move around, and look distance wise. Just be mindful of your health. Get up, walk around. Make sure you go to the bathroom once in a while. Not that one more row. You know. So, and I think the goal is, does it give you pleasure? Do you enjoy doing it? And I've always enjoyed creating. And it was funny with the beading, which rolled in from the embroidery that it was embellishing with the beads. It was a needle art. And once you know a needle art, you understand the concept of how to use a needle. And then it's just that learning curve on, like knitting, crochet, beading, tension. It's your tension. Is this a project that you need or want a little looser tension, or you need it a little tighter? And I tend to be a tight beater. And there are some projects of mine I've learned in my instructions, moderate tension, not too tight, not too loose. And then on down, it's like, okay, time to use tension here. Use a lot of tension. So those are things I've been really trying to be mindful, because I have to do it for me. So if I have to do it for myself, I would assume somebody doing my project would want to know that also. I guess when I started really doing instructions, I started in Word. I used, simple Word drawings, and they worked for a long time. And then I proceeded into photography. And then I found out a lot of tips, like you insert it larger and make it smaller, and then you get a crisper picture. So you learn as you go. Another bead artist, I loved how her instructions looked printed out, and she shared with me the type of paper she used and what an improvement that made, because when you're traveling, as I was at the time, you need to lighten your load a little bit. So I wanted two-side printing, not more paper. So it's been a journey. I'm trying to think. I've probably taught like 26 years. So it's, I don't know, right now I've had some playtime, and I have like 3 projects at home that are like, get to work. I have from Tucson, then we went into the shutdown. I bought beautiful things that I've only used a few of them. And one of them is the one kind of mid process. So my husband wants me to get moving on that. Because right now in my bead room, I'm going to say it's actually smaller than the bedroom that I'm in here. I have all of my beads, and I have all my crystals in, I think it was like a Draftsman drawer. It just fits my crystals in there really easy. And then another, my kitchen, my husband traded work for cabinetry for me. And my bead drawers are in these lovely pull-out drawers. So I try to make sure I put everything away after I'm finishing it. Because how many of you look and you look and you look for something that you just had in your hand a minute ago, and you put it in the wrong place? So I've been trying to be better about that. But when I had to move all my sewing things into my studio, I don't ever have the time to rip the whole studio apart at one time. I probably do one area at a time. So I've really tried to, there's certain craft that we've all probably tried that we either liked it a lot and did more of, or we totally hated it. I've gotten rid of all the hated stuff. I've donated what I could, and some, like, you get to a point you have to trash it. But a lot of this stuff I save. Like, there's things I can play with my grandchildren with. Mm-hmm. They can glue down stuff. That's all good. Is there any questions in the chat?
People are just saying your designs are so beautiful and very creative and really great pieces. There's just lots and lots of praise. There don't seem to be any questions. You're covering so many. You're a really well-defined, inspirational presentation. And what, so people, you're selling all, you have kits and digital tutorials on your Etsy shop?
Yeah.
And is that your preferred way of people contacting you, is through,
Um,
once again?
My email address is good too.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good. Some of my things in my Etsy shop I'm low on. They've been reordered, but I don't know when some of it's coming in yet. At some point. I'm finally gotten a few things replaced that I've been waiting for like months to come in. And of course, my husband wants me to not buy any more stuff in bulk. So then I just paid for $360 for two little things of crystals. How many of you like those sparkly things? They were like little magpies. Were you
Mhm.
drawn to them?
Absolutely. That's why your work, has always jumped out to me, because it's elegant, yet, almost vintage inspired, but yet different as well. So I
And
really,
my inspiration has come from all over the place. It's and I have so many more pieces that after a while I thought, oh, this is really going to get too lengthy. But I don't know. Right now I'm trying to achieve balance, keep beading, sew a little bit, and spend as much time as my son and his wife will let me with the kids. Before we went to Flagstaff, I had a 6-year-old and 11-month-old spend the night. And the older one he wants grandma all to himself. He doesn't want to share. So I have this little baby that's all over the place she crawls, she pulls herself up. So as we all know, that's the most dangerous time in their life. They're out to kill themselves. So you as grandma and mom and dad and whoever watches, you have to make sure that little baby goes up the stairs like. So it's like, okay, let's pull the baby gate out again. And and he wants to watch a movie and snuggle. And I'm going, but we can't do that until we get your sister to bed. So we get her to bed. She's never spent the night away from her mummy. So as you come, although some of you will appreciate, she screamed for 45 minutes before she fell asleep. And then she fell asleep. She was sitting up. She literally, like, she crashed forward, and I had to pull her legs out from underneath her so she could sleep. And then meanwhile, Xander, we're snuggling and eating. I'm trying to think. He was eating Cheerios, like popcorn. He's eating Cheerios. So I have so much fun with him, and he loves to read, and he can read very well. So he reads to me and I read to him. So we read his sister a book, and then we took her upstairs. So we took Xander on his first camping trip, and we wore him out. He just looked at us one night and goes, I'm going to bed. And he laid down, and that was it. So it was a tuner, and he's decided now he would rather camp in our backyard. I don't know why. But we're not going to do that. It's too much work. Maybe my husband likes hiking, and so I feel like sometimes he drags me along. So I chose the hikes on this trip. They were all moderately challenging, no more than 5 miles. That means my knees don't hurt. My body doesn't hurt too much. One of the first hikes he took me on was 11 and a half miles. I wanted to kill him. I literally was not happy with him. And he took me up this place called, if any of you live in Northern Virginia and are familiar with the Shenandoah National Park, there's a hike called Old Rag. And we did it the longest route possible. Well, for our anniversary a year ago, we did it the legal way. We went up and did the rock scramble, and I got up on top, and you have to hop boulders, and there's like spaces like that. And I got up there, I started crying. I'm going to die today, or I'm going to be really hurt. So I had to bend over, and him and my husband, another man, like did 1, 2, 3, pulled me over. And I said, I won't do that to myself again. That was scary.
yeah.
Um, really scary. But I for all the talk of like rattlesnakes and copperheads up there, I haven't seen any, and we've been up there a long time. So, but I did see a snake today hiking, and my husband never saw it, and he told me it was a garter snake. It wasn't going to, get me. And I said, I kind of figured that, but I don't like snakes. Mm.
I love it. I wish I were there in the most beautiful desert. It is nice, but
Yeah.
it's too hot in the summertime. So
They said it's unnaturally cool right now. It's been very, very pleasant. We're 5 minutes from one side of the national forest, and then we drive a half an hour to get to the other side of the mountain. We thought that was prettier because I think the side we're on is right next to a highway and it's utilized much more. But anytime you hike out, most people are so gracious and you meet some really, really nice people. So that's been a nice part. And then if any of you know my husband, especially at a show, he likes to talk a lot. And I'm going, let's go. And he's wanting to talk more. So, but life is good and it's sweet. And I want to be, I want to enjoy my life with my husband and I want to, but he knows that the craft side of me is, it's something I have to get out of me. I have to do a little bit every single day, so I personally, for me, I try and get up and do like, that computer stuff you got to do in the morning, answer emails or pay bills. I try and get that done. And then I make myself work out at least 5 days a week because I find I physically feel better for those times when you sit and bead a long time. And then my husband totally redid my studio. He took down some walls and we got some things out of there that I wasn't using anymore. And he put 8 can lights in the ceiling. They're up on 100% daylight. And it is so nice to bead in there now. And then I have a big, huge table. I have to have magnification. So I have a couple of various things. It kind of depends on what type of beading I'm doing, what I'm going to use, but it's, very comfortable. And because he realized that, well, we laugh, the older we're getting, the more light we need. And he did take care of that for me. So, and it also for him, it gets all the junk out of the house that he gets tired of my piles. Okay. The beading pile, the knitting pile, the books. But he knows that craft thing is, I've got to get it out, I got to do like 2-3 hours every day of
Oh, that would
something.
be a dream if I could do that many a day. I'm lucky if I get 10 minutes.
That's fabulous.
It's so nice. It's a goal to achieve too, to look forward to.
And it's been kind of like my son, that when I started all this, he's coming up on 34, my baby. And he was so wonderful to take to shows. He was my schlepper. That 10-year-old could help me get my canopy up. He could get my display built. He wouldn't touch the glass, but he would do everything else. He became quite a good salesman. He was so excited the first time he sold a piece. He forgot to, charge sales tax, but he was really excited that he goes, Mom, I can sell your work. But he goes, I really hate it when they ask me if I made it. Like, seriously.
Oh,
But he's my, I don't know, he's my youngest one. And there was a real big age span between the second and the third one. So I don't know. We have a very special relationship, and that's why his babies are so special to me too, I think, And then my other grandkids are older, and one we don't see much anymore. And then the other one's 22, and he is sweet and he is precious, but I don't get to see him enough either, but I enjoyed them thoroughly when they were younger. So anything else?
I love your skull piece too. That I think is really
Oh
cool.
man.
One of those special one, and I always look at that, but it's so cool. Skull with the little.
Oh, the one that I got from Mac. The
Yeah.
Mac. Yeah, she made them. She was making a bunch custom for me. And then we were in, and I couldn't find that magazine cover. It was a digital magazine, The Jewelry Artisan. And they asked me to do an article for them. So I had Mac's Raku piece that I hadn't done anything with. So I wanted to do something that everybody could do because that magazine was a broad range of craft. So I did that piece, and Karen Leonardo, who's a glasswork artist at the time, she's not doing glass anymore, but she just sends me this thing, and I was floored. I didn't know I was going to be in the cover of it. So and Mac was really excited. She goes, "It's my first cover piece too." And then Mac, Mac is such a gracious lady.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a whole tray of her things that are mine.
That's great. I love your work though. It's just fabulous. So I'm like, oh, like that, like that.
Yeah, I
So
recognize some names.
I just put the reminder out there through 9/25 you can get a 20% discount on Diane's Etsy shop. UMBS 20, it's in the chat. But the link to her Etsy shop is in the chat as well.
And if there's something there that's low in stock, just let me know, because sometimes it could be the things that I'm waiting for, or I just need to update. But yeah,
Thank you.
Etsy's been a good venue.
Thank you very much, Diane.
Yeah,
Earlier,
it was fun.
before you were on, I showed my version of one of your pieces, your starfish, that I ordered on Etsy. So,
okay.
and this is an old piece. I've had it for
I'll pull
a
it back a
while
little
now.
bit. Yeah. I made one in a seafoam color.
Yes.
And my mother took it off of me. It's her color,
Oh.
And it's the only beadwork of mine that she wears.
Oh.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
You need to design a mom's piece.
A what piece?
A mom's piece.
My mother is a gold girl.
Ooh.
Like 14 karat gold. She looks like, remember Wonder Woman with the bands? She has bracelets like that.
Well, if you did one in gold beads.
Yeah. She's tiny, but she likes that piece a lot. And in fact, a couple of her friends, because she lives down in Melbourne, Florida, and a couple of her friends have bought that starfish too. They wanted it finished. So I would when I would do shows, and I would have them all the colors that I had kits of. And then afterwards I kind of sell them off, because usually I have time to remake them if I want. Yeah, some of my bigger pieces, I don't sell them because I don't have time to remake.
Yeah, I don't sell a lot of my designs from the ones that were published either. And people keep asking because they're on display just in case, or if you have a kit.
Yeah.
But I don't want to sell the actual display. If it takes that many hours to make, I don't want to remake it again.
Yeah.
So I guess I always felt bad saying, no, I don't want to sell it to you. So thank you for validating that for me.
Yeah. And a couple of times I have given a fantasy price.
Uh-huh.
And I would be really more than happy to sell it for that, but nobody took me up. But I have a couple of those pieces. It's been a long, long time. When the stock market crashed, so did the crafts market for a long time. And that's when I really started teaching. I taught at Stars Beads in Vienna, Virginia, under Star herself and then Kay for years and years and years. And that was such a good learning. And Star was good because she knew I was a newer teacher, and I just stumbled and tripped along my way. But we really had a lovely season there. And then I taught locally up at a place called Bead Obsessions in Old Town Alexandria. That was a really wonderful place. And up in Rockville for accent beads. I'm trying to think. Oh, and cannot remember the name of the shop down in Occoquan, Virginia. It was a little tiny shop, and they're all gone now. And then I've taught up at Bead Soup in Savage, Maryland. I could go back there if I felt my vision was strong enough, because I adore Kathy up there. And I've taught there. Time goes by so fast. And then when you look back at how long, it's like, wow, like the Fire Mountain piece, when I'm going 20 years ago, I did that. And it seems like that.
Time flies, but yet the designs don't go out of style, I don't think.
Yeah.
I think they are timeless, so that's why people keep wanting to make them.
And a couple of them, like I said, the wildfire one I brought back, because I couldn't get the one crystal color, and then I found I could get it special ordered. And then I found well, sometimes when you clean, you actually find stuff. So I found stuff to make a couple of more pieces of small things. And I want to rewrite the instructions, though.
I think that's an interesting. I felt I should maybe rewrite some of mine, but I haven't gone back to do that time.
It's time consuming.
It's very time consuming. So but if you have any advice on how to rework them, whether people didn't like the photos, when you get feedback from people, is that why you're redoing it, because you got feedback from it, or you just thought you should redo it?
Well, I just felt I could write, but it's been like for wildfire, it's been 11, 12 years. I knew I could write them better.
Okay.
I simply knew that. I'm trying a couple of them. I also know my photography is much better now. There are things that I've got a better camera, a better setup. I've learned along the way. It helps to take some classes. I took general photography, and she advised me to take a class from somebody who takes jewelry photography, So I've taken classes from a couple of different people, and I had to find what worked for me, but I keep my my camera, my little box set up all the time in a corner of the office. And so I can, tether it to my computer. So I know instantly if my picture is in focus, if I have a piece of fuzz or like a crystal, a fingerprint, thumbprint show up in those things, or do you have any little pieces of junk on your background, you want to get off. And then I like to do step-by-step pictures. They do take a little time. And the feedback I've gotten, and most people tend to think they almost like to have both, what the step is and what it looks like when it's finished. That step is finished. So and some things I felt are very self-explanatory, and I didn't necessarily have to do that. But other pieces, a picture really, really helped a lot. And then I also found that illustrating, I could almost be less wordy, because sometimes I feel like I was writing too much, and I said, I think these are too many words. I want to make it simpler. These are instructions. This is not, a school report.
That makes sense.
You and even doing it as long as I have, you still learn. Paulette Barron and I were laughing about, during the pandemic, we were off, doing a little bead. We used to get together on Zoom and bead a lot together. And she said, as much illustrating as she's done, she said, after not writing anything for a long, long period of time, we were laughing about, we were looking up the commands on how to do things, because we kind of forgot, back, she uses a different program than I, but the end result, they look the same. But, so Paulette and I bounce off a lot each other, being around Paulette, she's a lot of fun. So she's, I think, been on a cruise. I don't know if she's back yet or not, but we do keep in touch quite a bit. And we get together, our little bead group. I don't know, during the pandemic, we got together every single week, Zoom, because we were going crazy, not having anything to do. So I don't know, we fed off of each other. And sometimes it could be very expensive when somebody was doing show and tell of what they bought different places. So we were all on the computer and then on an iPad shopping. So I have lots of little coiled things. I don't know what I'll do with them, but sometimes you need a stash, because without that stash, you can't, when you have an inspiration, you got to have all that stuff right there with you, or you lose it when you order the piece and it takes a week or two to come in. That was a big one with me. I go, well, what was it that I was even going to do with this? And I wasn't very good with that.
That's why working at the bead shop for so many decades is really dangerous. But then again,
yeah,
you have everything at your fingertips right in front of you.
And it doesn't get overwhelming sometimes? Sometimes,
yes. But I don't go a week without buying something new.
Yeah. I just tend to buy a whole bunch of things and then not for a long time.
Yeah. And so thank you so much. Any last words of inspiration for us?
No, I think, the biggest thing is be good to yourself, be good to your health, vision, get up and move, and give yourself a break sometime. Especially when you get frustrated, just put it down for a while. Tomorrow's another day.
True.
Look at it with a fresh perspective. And sometimes you have to do that when you design anyway. You just have to put it down.
Let it settle for a while and see how.
Well, thank you all for inviting me to come and share. It's been good.
Thank you so much. This has really been wonderful. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yay. So all we have to do is we have to remember, there we go.